Good evening, fellow directors, past presidents, members, and guests. Welcome to the 115th season of the Empire Club of Canada. And welcome to the Stories Building. My name is Kent Emerson. I am the president of the Empire Club and your host for today's event. Women Who Build is a great event, and thanks, Marsha, for organizing this. I'd like to start this event by recognizing our sponsors. First of all, LIUNA, who were not able to come. They have their national conference here. They were a big sponsor, and also OMERS. And I know Tenio Evangelista also couldn't come tonight. We also want to recognize the National Post and MediaEvents.ca for webcasting today's event. Without all this participation, these events couldn't happen. I'd also recognize there's a number of Empire Club board members here today. I'd like to recognize all of them for coming. I saw Ziggy and, where's Ziggy? Michael Kobzar, Jenna Hay. Thank you guys for all coming and supporting. Marsha, of course, is on our panel. I want to talk about these events. We have started these evening events a couple of years ago, and they're growing in popularity. And the idea is you come, you pay $40, you get your drink, we eat, and then we do the sit down, we do the panel, and then we drink and eat again. So you don't have to run anywhere, ever. The idea is they are social events, and we have our traditional lunches, but our evening events are a lot less formal, and they're a lot of fun. So when you see them pop up, they're always a lot of fun. So that's sort of how they run. And I think we're going to get into the topic. I would like to say the Empire Club prides itself on being a forum that shines light on issues that need to be discussed in Canada, and particularly to highlight these issues or discuss them with government. Tonight's event is no exception, and the event we had today was no exception. We had an event earlier today on the rise of white nationalism in Canada, which was an incredible success. It is known that women consistently earn less than their peers. From the Interprovincial Standards Red Seal program that sets common standards to assess the skills of tradespeople across Canada, we know certain demographic groups in the Canadian population traditionally been underrepresented in apprenticeship programs in the skilled trades generally. Women comprise about 14% of NAS apprenticeships overall. Fewer women than men were registered in a Red Seal trade, 59.2 versus 81.2%. Across the top 10 Red Seal trades, women are more likely than men to be hairstylists, cooks, or apprentices. So those are some basic stats. But tonight we have a panel not of just construction individuals, but from the building trades. We are fortunate to have some of the most successful women in Canada here today in their trade. And what we can agree that women are underrepresented also at the very top levels of this trade. And so in having success in their field, they're here to highlight the opportunities and progress that they have had in their careers, to give advice, to maybe talk about some of the challenges, and share their secrets of success with all of you. So it's time to introduce the panel. Our first panelist has been self-employed as a general, actually before I do this, our first panelist, Julie D. Lorenzo, has donated something fantastic for you guys tonight, and this is really, really special. So when you all leave here tonight, we have a Raptors t-shirts for everyone. So at the Empire Club of Canada, so hashtag Women Who Build is the event hashtag at Empire Club, and you should obviously put Julie in there as well. So when I was get on social media, do your thing. Our first panelist has been self-employed as a general contractor in the industry since 1982 on such projects as Empire Plaza Condominiums, Terminal 3 International Airport, as a developer and builder of the following projects: 520 Kingston Road, and LIUNA's social housing development in Ottawa, and many, many other projects. Diamante projects have been awarded the Greater Toronto Home Builders Project of the Year in 1997, 98, and 99. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome the president of Diamante Corp, a real estate developer company and general construction contractor. Diamante Corp. Julie D. Lorenzo. more than a decade of experience in senior roles within government, including as former Chief of Staff to the Minister of Transportation, Chief of Staff and Senior Policy Advisors to the Minister of Training, College and Universities, Marsha brings a wealth of infrastructure development and public policy experience to Infrastructure Ontario. She was a key contributor to the province's plan for civil infrastructure investment. Having led a mechanical contracting company as an owner-operator, Marsha couples her political experience with her on-the-ground construction experience to move business initiatives forward. Marsha holds an MBA from the Rotman School of Business and attended plumbing apprenticeship training, which is amazing to me, at UA Local 46 Plumbers and Steamfitters Training School. She continues to co-own and act as director of the board of Mason Mechanical and MAS Sheet Metal. She's the director at the Empire Club of Canada and the former director of Metropolitan Plumbing and Heating Contracts Association. Please give a round of applause for Vice President in Corporate Strategy at Infrastructure Ontario, Marsha Seca. Our next guest has spent 25 years in the construction industry before landing on her current job at Infrastructure Ontario, an agency of the province, with the mandate to modernize public assets. Denise oversees a team of professionals to deliver a large healthcare, education, and other social infrastructure projects for the province. She and her team provide advice during project planning on contract models, project structuring, and risk allocation, and play a role in the overall governance of projects during the transaction period, managing the procurement, negotiation, and commercial closing process, which is a big mouthful, I have to say. It sounds complicated. During construction, the team provides active project management and advisory services to co-sponsors. Prior to joining Infrastructure Ontario in 2008, Denise provided project management services at the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation. Please give a round of applause to Senior Vice President at Infrastructure Ontario, Denise McNally. And our last guest works in the Toronto office of Borden, Ladner, Gervais, LLP, practicing in the area of commercial real estate and advises clients on a broad range of commercial real estate matters of acquisition, disposing and financing of commercial real estate properties, to structuring and negotiating investment vehicles, to achieving clients' varied business objectives. Please welcome a partner at Borden, Ladner, Gervais, LLP, Zuyan. And our moderator tonight, who just flew here in the island airport, hot off the airplane. She has a lot of fancy titles and areas of responsibility, but she is here tonight in her most distinguished capacity within her portfolio as the Minister in charge of growing female entrepreneurship. She was first elected as the Member of Parliament for Markham Thornhill in April 2017 and was appointed Minister of Small Business and Export Promotion in July. Through her July 2018, through her 20 years of public service, Minister Ng has been a passionate community leader and advocate with a proven track record for results in the areas of education, women's leadership, job creation, and entrepreneurship. Prior to being a Member of Parliament, she has worked as Director of Appointments in the Prime Minister's office. She also served as the Director of Policy and Provincial Education, where she builds relationships, negotiated with teachers' units, and served students with helping to improve Ontario's educational system. Please welcome the MPP for Markham Thornhill and Canada's Minister of Small Business and Export Promotion, the Honourable Mary Ng. So Mary's going to run this panel. I turn it over to you, and at a certain point, Mary's going to call on you to do a Q&A and have audience questions. So if at that time, so think of your ideas for that time so Mary can call upon you. So thank you, everybody.
So thank you so much, Kent. You know what, this is awesome because typically I'm on the hot seat having to answer questions, and today I get to ask the questions, which is amazing, and get a, and I hope we'll be able to get some audience input as well. It's really extraordinary to be here with these extraordinary female leaders, and I think we're just gonna, we'll just get right into it. When I think around, around the world, we are all talking about how to get more women to participate in the Canadian economy. In fact, not only in the Canadian economy, but in all economies. I don't think that, when I meet with my counterparts around the world, it is, they often talk to me about a couple of things. how do we get more small and medium-sized businesses a greater share of the pie so that our small and medium-sized businesses can grow and trade with each other, so whether it's in Europe or in Asia. But the other thing they talk to me about is how, what are you doing and what are you doing in Canada, because you are leading and you're putting a very deliberate focus on growing female entrepreneurs and female-led businesses, and how are you guys doing that? So, and so I get to talk often about what the government is doing around creating more female entrepreneurs or female business leaders. And I have a mandate from the Prime Minister to double the number of female entrepreneurs in this country by 2025. So, yeah. But here's the reason for doing it. I lead a $2 billion investment plan to take on that task. But, and I often say that I'm not really particularly a numbers person. The folks around here are. But here's the return to the Canadian economy. $150 billion to the Canadian economy. So if I think about it, a $2 billion investment, $150 billion return on the, a return to the Canadian economy, I actually think that's a pretty good ROI from where I sit. So it's not only the right thing to do, but it's the economic smart thing to do. So the question to all of you, and I'll start with you, Denise, which is, the building industry, much like technology and others, have been male dominated. So what is sort of, what's your view and about, and I just relay the context for entrepreneurship, but what is, why do you think the importance of getting women into the industry, into the building industry, and how do you think we might go about doing that? I'm sorry I started with you as the hard question.
I know. I picked this seat, so I think that women have a lot to offer. They have a lot to offer, and I'm speaking from where I sit, and we're very involved in all aspects of construction and the projects that we do, but they have a lot to offer. They have a unique perspective. They have a thinking process that's very unique, and it's needed by a lot of the activities that we do. I think we want to encourage them to be more involved, and there is jobs for them. I sit on a committee, and I won't get into details, but I like to give some context or a bit of a story. And I'm sitting around a table, and there had to be 20 men, and I think there was me, being the only female at the table, and that was a discussion. The discussion was a little more pointed in terms of how do we get women to get the skills, and how can we get them to join our apprenticeship program and to get into the education? Should we talk to the parents, or how do we get them to get into the school and the programs? So I'm looking at it thinking, well, that's fine. It is a good thing, but I think that a lot of it starts from the industry. The industry has to lead the change. I think they have to change the mentality. I think it starts from the large corporations, the dominant players in the industry have to lead the way, and others will follow. They have to promote and advocate, saying we want women to join our firm. We're going to give them the same opportunities as we give the men. We're going to pay them the same as we do the men, and they have to promote that. And they should be saying, here's our statistics, and here's our progression that we are doing for internally in our company. We have policies to promote it, and then others, and they should share that within the community, and other companies should follow. But it really has to start from the industry, because the problem isn't necessarily with the women not wanting to join and to get the education. It starts from the marketplace. Women will go and get the education if they know they're going to be welcomed at the other end and have a job waiting for them, and they have the same opportunities for progression as the men.
So as a female CEO of a significant, incredible company in this field, what's your perspective and response to what Denise just said?
So to give you an idea of scale, I'm doing one of the largest projects in the city right now, and about $750 million of work. But when you see a profile in a recent magazine, it's called The King of Condos. There wasn't a woman on the page. So this is great. Am I yelling? Am I doing this at house? But you have to have a bit of
It's okay to be loud and bold.
So I start by saying something serious, but you have to have a sense of humor when you have your own business and you're a woman. So I just got to give you a cute little story. I'm sitting at my desk, and it's 6:30, and it's one of those I feel really cool days, like my clothes are great, my hair is great, and I had a great meeting. and I'm at the phone, and it's 6:30, and the principal of my daughter's school calls. I go, hello. She goes, how are you? I go, I'm great. She goes, well, where are you? I go, oh, I'm in my office, you know, feeling really good, right? She goes, oh, your daughter's here, because I forgot her. I forgot to pick her up. So one of the things that is serious about that is that childcare is still only deductible up to $8,000. So that literally allows me to have a nanny for 1 day a week. And people know they get emails from me at 4 in the morning, so I have a relay of people that help me do my job. So until we understand that there are things that need to change structurally, women will not necessarily be able to dedicate their time to their jobs. Childcare at $8,000 a year is not satisfactory. Are there other impediments to women? I say be a developer. It is the best job in the whole wide world. You own your space, you own your work, and you get to meet the most amazing people. So I would tell you that I've been really lucky. There haven't been a lot of impediments. And if there have been impediments, there have been impediments that existed in the industry in the first place. You know, in one era, there was no capital. Now there's definitely not a problem with capital. So it's really about surrounding yourself with the smartest people, but that's not just women, it's women and men. And I've had great men who were sponsors and believed in me. So you find people who believe in you and avoid the people that don't believe in you.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, I'll pick up where you know, on your point about affordable childcare. You know, our investments and our economic investments to help women grow in, you know, in business won't do it on its own. So putting 40,000 affordable childcare out there into, you know, into the provinces and in the country is going to help women be successful. Our view, so we absolutely agree, and putting forward a $10 million construction fund, which is a construction fund to facilitate and promote women in construction in particular, is something that we are looking very much forward to working with you in the industry and everyone in the industry, but to help promote more women participating and leading and getting into the field of construction.
Can I jump in?
Yes, please.
Can people hear me? Yes, okay. I just wanted to add on something that Julie said. So when I went into the construction sector, I went in as an owner. I didn't find that particularly hard. Like, people were welcoming of me. It was all good. It was fine. People respected my mind. I think that, though, what Denise says is important, and I'll talk a little bit about my experience in apprenticeship training. I think that the industry has to create a culture of being accepting of women from the bottom up through the top. I think once you get to a place where you're established, I think your title somewhat helps, and you've proven yourself. But when you're going to apprenticeship training and you're the only woman in the room, and your instructor is nice to you and not nice to the rest of the guys in the room. I mean, I was fine with that, but culturally it's wrong. So there's a going out to job sites, and you know, it was I could see why it's not always culturally inviting for women in the field to go to the job site. So I agree with Denise that the industry has to step up and kind of fix that. And I'll make one last point. I also believe that I got involved because some relative was involved, and I think I read the statistics that say that generally women who do get involved, it's because they grew up in it or somebody influenced them in that nature. And I think the influence should spread to elementary schools, right? Like, why are we not talking about that as a viable career for children, right? My son certainly doesn't think that girls are different than he, but we aren't really promoting that even as parents when we put our children in dance versus hockey. Right. You know, there's a cultural shift that needs to happen at the lowest levels, right, as well as in the industry.
Right. I often say that you have to see it to be it. To see women in leadership, but to see women throughout, you know, sort of all levels in the industry, I think is going to make that difference. I think, you know, and you know, I think what I'm also hearing is that it isn't just one or the other. It actually requires everyone. It requires industry. It requires, you know, parents who will encourage their girls. It requires, you know, it requires the tools that we have that governments have put into it. So the question, actually, this one, you know, is for you, Marsha. You have a really interesting background because you started and you continue to have a business in construction and plumbing. Yet you've also spent a lot of years doing public policy, and public policy specifically to put programs together that are apprenticeship programs that will then help encourage and create that right environment for our, for everyone, but for females, for women, for girls to get into apprentice, into the trades.
Yeah.
So can you talk to us about, and yet the numbers are, as we described, still quite low. So
I failed.
well, so let's talk about not that. Let's talk about going forward. What can we learn from this? I mean, what can we be doing so that we can create so that the apprenticeship programs actually can work for women to increase women in trades?
I think I started to answer it earlier. I think girls just need to see it as a viable option and not grow up believing that they're too weak to do it. And then when they get to the job site, I mean, they need to feel welcomed. They can't be treated like the person who just holds the sign or, whatever it is that you see going on in the job site. The calendars that are plastered on the walls and, the culture that goes on on sites. I hate to be crass, but it's true, it exists. I think we've got it at the post-secondary level. Like certainly they're welcome to attend and the numbers are increasing and the government's pumping money into programming and they get bursaries for their tools and all the rest. I think it just has to start younger. We have to start talking about it in the K-12 arena and then eventually I think the parents will shift with that.
Right. I'm sorry to put you on the hot seat again. I'm going to go to Suyan in a second, but Julie, in response to to this and thinking of it from the from the point of view of the industry, are there some of those challenges that as an industry, the industry can put their mind to around creating an environment and a culture that right from the get-go, women who enter into the field feel like they belong there?
I think it's a little bit of give and take. You can't expect to leave a big meeting because you got an emergency and not have everybody, drop their shoulders. So what you do is you end up creating your own environments. So I'm famous for my breakfasts. Why breakfast? Because I get the kids wherever they're going, and you can find me at the same table practically every morning having breakfast meetings. Why? Because it lets me be productive. But the point of that is you own your own space. When you own your own business, you don't have to go to a meeting when someone else tells you. You figure out the times that work for you, and you organize your life around what works for you. And so you can't really expect the whole world to accommodate on their schedule, but you create a life that you need based on your own limitations. So I've seen, to be honest, the only time I've ever seen a problem when I was president of the Home Builders, I actually hid that I was pregnant. I don't know if anybody knows wrapped Donna Karan dresses, right? So I hid for 5, 6, 7 months till I got elected. And then when I got elected, I made sure I wore the tightest Donna Karan dress, so my belly was here, and people are going, oh my God, what are we gonna do with her now? But the point was, was that fair to them? I felt that was fair to me because I knew I could do the job, and I had my baby while I was president. And a lot of people know here I had my BlackBerry in the room with me. But you also have to find, as I said, I had a great colleague at the Home Builders Association at the time who was a supporter. And so when someone said she can't do the job, he said she's going to do the job, and if you don't support her, you have to go. And so you continuously cultivate the people around you who support you. There'll be a bit of overlap and a bit of give and take, but you'll find the people that support you.
That's great. Speaking of the industries that that collaborate with the construction industry, development, and you need lawyers to put deals together. So you've certainly put a number of commercial real estate deals together. What's your perspective, Suyan, around those who are practicing alongside you? Are you finding that there are other women there? You find that we certainly do in my own business. When you have when you are a leader at the table and you have other collaborators at the table who also add to the voice, it actually strengthens it. So from your point of view, on the deal making side, what do you think?
Yeah, so my experience is a little slightly different from the rest of the panel, just because I'm not on the site like Julie to fight with other male counterparts or doing what you do, Marsha. But I do all that in a boardroom. I do all that through emails with my fingertips and conference calls. And as probably most of you know, like half of the now law school students are female, and close to half, if it's not already over half, practicing lawyers are female. But in commercial real estate, for some reason, still the share of the female lawyers are still, comparatively speaking, much less, little. For multiple reasons, I think. And like it is even now, like I've been practicing for 10 years from day one, and like it's still now, it's uncommon to walk into a boardroom with a room full of still primarily male, I would say, and especially on the business side, I would say lawyers, probably you see more female lawyers, but when you're dealing with your clients or client's team, it's not uncommon at all, it's all male. Then the other side, you have to negotiate with the other side who are also male. I'm actually used to it. I'm immune to it, but I'm aware of it. I know there's still, like I'm reluctant to, I know our title today is the barrier and opportunities, and I'm reluctant to use the word barriers because barriers seems to imply some drastic measures has to be taken to bring down. And I would rather to call that challenges because challenges breeds opportunities, right? And if you want to really, the rest of our panelists, they all know much better than me. In order for real estate business to succeed, you have to see who is consuming the real estate. And now we all know women, significantly increasing number of women are consuming real estate. So when we design, when we build a building, we have to address their concerns. If you're an architect, you're a designer, you're a builder, you have to, if there's a woman on your team, you got a woman perspective, and your business is likely to be more successful. I would think it's more diverse. So from practicing law perspective, my perspective is a little different though, because I don't think we can see women as monolithic, because everybody's experience is different, cultural upbringings, social economic status. I am a woman, but I'm also an Asian woman, and I also relatively a newcomer to this country. I came to Canada in 2000 for school. So when you get to so many challenges or hurdles in front of you, you kind of lose track of how many are there. So you kind of just focus on what do you want to do. It's kind of in my story, like I have to say that my decision making, it's really female play a role. In other words, I can never really think about whether I can do it or not because I'm a woman. Naively, but somehow benefit me because I never think about that role. Like I just don't think that way. Of course, I have to say, like I'm very fortunate to have mentors along my way. I think one way to answer the minister's question about how we go about this, I think it's very important. We talk about external measures we have to see from the industry, but also from within as a woman professional. You know what you want, and you seek out the mentors. And I think mentor, very important, very effective mentorship, effective tool to help the younger generation of a woman professionals that are interested in the building or commercial real estate industry to succeed. And I think, especially for us on the stage, and I think many of you as well, we have been given a lot of opportunities along their way. So I think it's almost like an obligation on us to give that back to the next younger generation to help. That's really, I think, one way to, I'll end this, I promise I stop after this. Just to a personal story to respond to some of you mentioned about you can be who you cannot see. Is that how you say it?
You need to see it to
You
be
need
it.
to see it, yeah. So very interesting. I have two little ones. When my daughter was about 3 or 4 and my son's 2-ish, so I asked my son, I said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And my son, knowing I'm a lawyer, and he said, I want to be a lawyer. And my daughter looked at him saying, don't be silly, you're not a girl. You can't be a, you can't be a lawyer.
Bravo.
So this conversation
Yes.
happened 60 years ago. You all know how that conversation would go, right? It's the opposite. So I was, of course, it's 2 kids talking. I was on site. I was like shocked. And I said, this is how, like we can, sometimes it just takes us to show people what we're doing, showcase what we do. then everything, it will follow. Yeah.
Yeah, I think very much, we are certainly of that ethos, I mean, to see it to be it. But, speaking of leadership and speaking about how a sector or an individual or individuals could sort of take a bit of the leap or take a little bit of the lead. Denise, you manage a portfolio that is some of the largest and important infrastructure projects here on behalf of the province. And I'm just wondering, whether it is schools or hospitals or the other institutional, infrastructure projects that, that's in as part of your portfolio. Have you seen an increase in women participating on those projects? Because, in government, you sometimes are able to create an environment because you actually have a lever on the rules. So when I think about what I'm doing, I think, so we want to help Canadian companies scale up. We want them to grow. How do I help some of our Canadian companies grow? Well, you take a piece of what government is going to buy, because we're a very big purchaser, and we make sure that we give preference to Canadian small and medium-sized companies, but we are also going to give preference to women entrepreneurs or women-led businesses and so forth. So the government actually has an opportunity to sort of put some parameters around. So are you seeing any changes at all in the infrastructure projects that you get to lead?
So in terms of any policy, in terms of our procurement policy, no, we don't shape or direct in terms of requiring a certain women-led businesses. Of course, we would encourage it. I would say in the past, having been in construction for 25, many years, we'll just say, I would say recently, these projects are very big, so each of the bidding teams brings together a diverse sector of the overall, and it includes the lawyers and the lenders and the architects and the design engineers. It's very large. And I would say it is good to see today, and even so much as even 10 years ago, there's a lot more women who are participating in these pursuits and taking lead roles. They're not just in the office helping design and prepare for these bids. These bids are very expensive because the projects are very large. They are leading the discussions and the presentations. They have the ability to connect with the audience. They have the ability to explain technical terms in a non-technical way that makes the clients understand. Because remember, these are users, they're not necessarily technical people. I would say in terms of what we're seeing is in the design and even the engineering trades, we're seeing almost equal representation. Obviously not so much in the design engineering, might be slightly less in terms of women participation. I think that it's changing, it is. I have a couple examples, but I say when we go to site, there's still some of that historical, it hasn't changed too very much, very male dominated. Site work is tough, and I know we've talked about this off stage, and I'm not going to say barriers, but it is tough. But I would say a couple of examples I would give in just how good women are at really presenting, because the power, they have very influential. There's an engineer that a construction firm, one of the prominent construction firms we use, and she always shows up, and she's an electrical engineer, and she always does the presentations, and I don't know how she makes electrical drawings interesting, but she does. So she's explaining it, and she doesn't get fussed, and she does it better than anyone out there in terms of presenting, and it really helps them because you have a good presentation. The audience really is very receptive. I can name a couple of lawyers, I won't name the lawyers, but there is some female lawyers which I know no one likes to see across the table from you in these negotiations, because she's very tough, very respected, and women are really making a place. I would say there's still always some challenges that we have to work through, and at the trade and the site level, I think we've all talked about it, it is tough. It's not insurmountable. I always go and talk to the general site managers, and I always ask, I say, well, how many females do you really have? And he said, well, I do. He goes, actually, we really promote as a corporation, we want women to step up, and I have a couple of supervisors who are women, and he goes, I actually prefer them because they're very detail-oriented and very neat and organized, and they tell me what I need to know. And I said, I'm getting excited. And I said, oh, this is great. I'd like to hear this. So, and he says, but And I said, oh God, I'm deflated immediately. And he goes, well, there's still some things that make the women really good can be sometimes a challenge, and then that emotional aspect in that. And he goes, well, sometimes they cry too much and they cry in front of the men. I went, oh, geez. I said, well, let me know if you need me to talk to them because I don't cry. And it's never them, it's everybody else. So there's always, I think mentorship is very important, especially when you get to the trade level and the site level. It's tough. It's a lot slower to change, but I think we've changed leaps and bounds, and women really have a good voice, and they're very good. I will say to all the bid teams, or people who represent bid teams, they're very strong, and they're very well received by the audience, because the audience doesn't see gender. They hear a really good story and a good sales pitch.
Right. Well, I sit around a cabinet table. There's half of us who are women, and there's the other half who are men. When there are a tough issue to, to debate through, to work through, from time to time, emotions do come up, and it's regarded as, good input. And the reason it's regarded as good input is because of the diversity of views, because at the end of the day, someone I think here said that your customer, your consumer is, represents that, represents that diversity now, and to be responsive and to be competitive, to be able to get that, to get that business, to have that perspective and a wider range of perspective is probably what we are starting to see more and more of. But as far as questions go, those are the ones that I've got. So maybe what we'll do is we'll throw it out to the floor, and we'll get some questions. But I want to save just a little bit of time at the end, because I have have one last question for everybody on the panel. But for now, why don't we throw it to the floor? So who wants to do the first question? Please. Or am I so? Oh, sorry. I feel like Kent's supposed to do this. I've now just taken it over. Right.
Hello. I have a question. I agree with where it starts to promote women and the opportunities to women. You have to start with institutions, because if I have a proposal to become a proprietor or to build a company, and I go to a financial institution and I say, I need some help, I need some capital, you need to start with institutions, because I don't think women are getting the help that they need. And I speak firsthand because I'm in that industry where I lend, and it's kind of, it's very difficult for a woman, even though she has a full-time job, she has great salary, she has great proposal. Banks don't lend, in certain areas. So if they consider that risky.
Well, I feel like that's an answer that, if you don't mind, I will take it. Mm-hmm. It's precisely why we have a strategy, which is the first ever women's entrepreneurship strategy. So let me give you some statistics. 99% of our businesses in this country, 99% are small and medium-sized businesses. What percentage do you think are women-owned or women-led? 2? It's better than 2, so that's good.
Large percentage, right?
16.
Oh.
So it's only 16%. So earlier I said, so it's 16%, and yet we know we can actually add to the Canadian economy. That 16% right now, by the way, contributes $150 billion to the Canadian economy, and they employ 1.5 million Canadians. That's female entrepreneurs out of that 16. So imagine doubling that and actually having that kind of participation. But you're absolutely right. The issues that face women, those barriers, and they are barriers that we have to, that we're working to overcome. Access to capital, I hear it all the time. I hear it from small and medium-sized businesses across the country all the time, but I do particularly hear it from female entrepreneurs because of the industries that they tend to be in. They're considered higher risk, or the lending, and the collateral that's needed tends to be more of a challenge. So those are some of the things that we are absolutely tackling as part of that strategy. But from the business owner and here on the panel, do you want to talk about about how to address that from
Access
your
to capital?
standpoint? Yeah.
I would say when I first started in '82, so it's 35 years now, I do recall if I applied for a credit card and my partner did, who was a man, he would get a larger credit limit. I think we've come a long way, though. I've got to be honest with you. And I think that now you've got a lot of banks who are very sensitive, and you've got a lot of female bank managers now on the other side of that table. And so I haven't seen, for example, as a developer, any difficulty with access to capital any longer. In fact, there's so much money out there for developers now that you're actually just picking a suitable developer, a suitable bank. So what I find is if I find resistance, I just find someone else. You really have to learn, you can't go push against the wall. Just move and you'll find someone else. And so once upon a time, some of the simplest advice I ever got was when you feel you're at the edge of the table and it's really, you can't see anything better, you just push yourself higher and you've got the whole plane of the table. There is a whole depth of financing available there. BDC does a great job, and also they provide mentorship.
They can, but guess what? We've increased their portfolio. Part of that $2 billion strategy, $1.6 billion is going specifically into BDC to capitalize female entrepreneurs. So on that, you're absolutely right. And it isn't so much just the money part. It actually is the mentorship and accessing, getting the advice and getting access to the mentors and, the supply chains and so forth. So I'm going to make a plug. Go to innovation.canada.ca or download my Canada app, Canada Business app, and it'll guide you through sort of, the various streams of capital that might be there for female entrepreneurs. Okay. Next question?
No, you're not. Okay, we'll speak louder.
Oh, it's probably because they need the microphone too.
Right.
Next question? Whoever's got the mic.
Hi, thanks. You guys spoke a lot about mentorship and sponsorship. And Julie gave a really great example of somebody going above and beyond to advocate for you. But in an effort to try to take something away, my question is, what two characteristics would you have to see in someone for you to do the same? For you to say, you know what, this person or this female is going to do this job, and I'm gonna, so that we know how to better display that characteristics to our mentors.
So that's a beautiful question. And I would say, I was going to make a joke that this whole side looks like my family because we bought all the tickets. But we have a motto. We take in 7 to 10 kids every summer, and we teach. And it's, I don't even see, it's not men or women or boys or girls. I see character. Character's number one. Leadership comes from having values, value-driven people. And that is the number one criteria. Can I tell a little an interview I went to? I went to a very famous person for a loan once. And I was really nervous, and I practiced, and I had all my pro formas. And he didn't ask me one question about my business. The first question was about my ex-husband, which is a very interesting topic. That's too much drama for tonight. The second question was, you see there's humor in business, because otherwise you go crazy, right? The second question was, are you spending too much time doing charity work? Is your eye off the ball at work? I thought that's a fantastic question too, which leads me into another bit of advice. And I said to him, why didn't you ask me any questions about my business? And he said, well, you wouldn't have even been in the door if I didn't think you knew what you were doing. I want to know what kind of person you are. And I would tell you as an entrepreneur, hands down, what gets you to the finish line is your character and your integrity. And I would say that would be number one. And then we could figure out what we want to do after that. I really genuinely believe that. Hopefully my team has always known that. Talk about the philanthropy for a second. So another time, can I tell another joke or not really? I think I'm
Yes.
funny. My family doesn't think I'm funny, so I got you guys in front of me.
But that's such a great question that once you're
It goes
finished,
to your
I'm going to
point,
have the
yeah.
others answer that question too, because I think that's a great question.
So I promise not to take that one. So I do massive play dates because I can't do one play date at a time because I have no time. So I get a bus, and we're all going to the Jonas Brothers, all these moms and the kids. And we look out in the window, and everybody at the bar is a man. And one of my friends who sold her company for $400 million turns to me and says, you know, the reason there's a problem is because they're in the bar and we're in the bus going to the Jonas Brothers. Right? But what she and I then decided is how we do our socialization, which is fundamental to business. I tell everybody, be in the traffic or don't bother going. Don't even bother being an entrepreneur if you're not in the traffic. So how you do it is really nice ways. You get on a board, if you know someone that can get you on a board, a nonprofit board, and you start to make connections, and then they know your character. Again, it always goes back down to character. Okay.
Denise?
I would say it's the confidence in yourself, and having confidence and having convictions when you're right and when you're wrong, and be able to admit that. But I think it really has confidence, and if you know you're right, be very confident in saying and voicing your opinion. I think that you have to in this industry and building it especially.
Marsha?
I think what I'll say is I felt sometimes as a woman in construction that I had to always be proving myself in a way that I didn't so much in public policy and politics. I was always, because people, they view you with their biases. They see the blonde woman who didn't, grow up in a trade, and what do you know? And, they have these biases. So I felt that I was constantly having to prove myself, and I think that was part of the reason why I went to trade school, because I wanted to show them that I could do it too, and that I knew just as much as they did. And so I guess agreeing with both Julie and Denise, but my motto has always been, I'm gonna work harder and know more, and therefore you can't challenge me. So I think that would be my advice.
Right.
Yeah, so I think integrity you mentioned is very important. If I have to pick another one, would be take the ownership of what you're doing, and you always do that extra mile. That really make you stand out. Like you always do something more than what you are being asked. I find for like articling students or junior lawyers, and I see that character, that attributes in them, I know they're going to make it. It's always that extra.
That's great advice from a great, from these female leaders. Work hard, be confident, have character, integrity, and value, and I think that holds you well. I think in this industry, but quite honestly, I think in almost every industry there is. It's synonymous. So really good advice. What is the next question? I'm just looking for the mic. There we go.
Hi, this is a great presentation and bringing lots of value, so thank you all very, very much. There is one thing that I want to ask that we talked a little bit about, I think, is mentorship. And what I wanted to ask you all is, have any of you used an association or something where you're a member of that helped you along your path? And if so, what was it and how did it help you?
Who wants to take it?
Not in my case actively. Like I belong to all the lawyers, association this and that bar. I'm primarily just for me to really being up to date as what's going on in the industry and so forth. To know people, because most of them are, I'm talking about like a lawyer association, also belong to some industry event. That's a whole different story. Then you get to meet the clients more at business development for me rather than for the mentorship purposes. I mean, we have to remember mentorship it comes different forms, right? It's formal, informal. Like I have mentors both within my firm, BLG, and outside the firm. I'm male and female. Some are more professional in a way, like they just teach me how to do things, how to do the deal, how to negotiate. Some are more in a career path. How do you advance? How should you develop your business? And you can find multiple mentors for different purposes.
Julie.
Yeah.
Sorry.
When I started FBDB, they were called, now they're called BDC, had great mentorship programs. Then the credit union movement, it's really, community lending is really a very interesting way if you're starting a small business to get advice. Other than that, I've got to say, when I started, all my advisors were older, and now all my advisors are younger than I am. So I talk to my team all the time. What do you think? We have a problem. We talk about the problem. I say, what do you think? So perspective doesn't necessarily come from someone that's older than you. It comes from people who are going in the same direction as you.
I'm going to make 3 comments. I think I had mentors that were, I don't think we have to look at mentors as men or women. And I think that's a whole conversation to unpack. I had lots of mentors who were men, like very welcoming to me in construction, who were lovely older men who wanted to help me and tried in many ways, and still I talk to this day. As a director of the board of the Empire Club, the reason I put this event together is because I believe we need to build a network and help each other and stand by each other. And I didn't want it to be so much about barriers as much as it is highlighting that there is opportunity and trying to actually influence the message out there that the world is not just for, this world is not just for men. And I don't think men think so either, and not all of them anyway. Many of them don't. And I'm going to say thirdly, yes, I did. I sat on a board. I was on the board of the Metropolitan Plumbing and Heating Contractors Association. And I think that helped me a lot get some credibility in my job because although they were all men, they knew that I knew things and could do things that they couldn't do, and they respected that. And so I gained some mentors that way too, but mostly they were men, and I wanted to do this event so that women, we have to bring each other up too. We have to
See it
help
to be
each
it.
other out. See it to be it, yeah.
Denise?
I would say that when I was, growing up through the industry, there wasn't those associations, specifically to support women. But I would say, like Marsha, my mentors were men in the industry, and I always tell the story. But it really stuck with me, and it's really, propelled me, through the industry. Is I remember asking, because I grew up in construction, my brother, and I said, well, how do you feel? How do you feel when you see a woman in the room, or you see a woman coming in who's either an engineer or a landscape architect or whatever it is that you're doing? How do you respond to her? And he goes, there's always the noise that's around it when they see a woman. And this is, many years ago, so always the tittering or what have you. But he said, you know what, when it comes down to it, as long as she knows what she's talking about and she's giving me direction, so it's not slowing me down on site, and it all comes down to business. If she knows what she's talking about, yeah, I'll listen to her, because I got to get on site and do this, and I have people waiting, so she better know what she's talking about. So that's what I was thinking. And I think we've touched on this, is, you're going to have to work a little bit harder. Maybe it's just the nature it is. Growing up, I had to, they say women has to work twice as hard to make half as much, yeah, but I had to. So it's important to know your stuff and then stand by your convictions, and you're right. And then you will gain respect. And because when it comes down to it, they really just want direction so they can get out on the site and do it. Yeah. Everything else is just noise.
What Denise is talking about is a woman boss.
It's so true, though. It's I think at the end of the day, it's your proven track record that really speak values. Like at the beginning, like I don't remember how many times when I negotiate with a male lawyer on the other side, especially if it's a senior, like 20 or whatever, 30 years older than me, and you can just tell by the first line, he's not thinking too much of me, and it was just very condescending. Then once you start to give the reasons and an argument, and then they start to listen, right? Like, I mean, being Asian is not helping, because a lot of people think we're like perpetual college students until we hit 65. So it's true. And they were just saying, "How old are you?" I'm not young. I'm actually not young.
Yeah.
So
it's a good problem.
But well, that's a problem.
I had a
It's not
title.
problem. It's yeah.
And, yeah.
It's but when you really know your stuff, you know what you're doing. At the end of the day, really, I think other people will listen. Right.
So I've been getting the hand signal back there. So we're heading towards a wrap, but here's the last one question I have for everyone. And I'm gonna start with Marsha, because I started with Denise the first time. So to the group, one tweetable advice to women who are curious about getting into the building industry, what would it be?
Work hard, be strong.
Okay.
Get involved now, today.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Julie?
Speak a little louder than you think is polite.
That's 120
That's a good
characters
one.
too. I hope those who are tweeting it is actually tweeting this. Denise?
I'm going to be very unoriginal when I think of it. I'm saying just do it. The time is right.
Yeah.
Do it. If you like construction and you know you can do it, just do it. There's nothing stopping you. Ignore the noise and be strong.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so very much, everyone. Let's give the panel a hand. I love being the one asking the questions today. It was awesome.
And you did a great job. The appreciation remarks are normally done by the sponsor, Joseph McNally, but tonight they're going to be done by a board member, Jenna Hay, from the Empire Club, who looks exactly like Joseph McNally.
And look, the Raptor t-shirts are going. So you know what? Before even that, it's a Go Raptors Go, right?
Oh, good. I can talk longer because I'm no longer standing in the way of them.
Thank you.
I want to just take a moment before I read Joe's remarks to thank this panel. I think a really good sign of an excellent event is the fact that I was sitting there regretting not having a notebook with me. So thank you so much. I want to give a special thank you to Minister Ng. Minister, as you know, and as Kent alluded to earlier, we really have been striving, especially this past year at the Empire Club, to have conversations that matter, to have conversations that, as Kent had today, sometimes are difficult in our society, but are really important to have. Every single time we've picked up the phone and called you, Minister, you've responded enthusiastically, and we're very appreciative of that. So thank you so much. Tonight's no exception. And of course, I want to thank all of our panelists for such engaging and dynamic remarks. Certainly that tweetable advice at the end was great. And also just one very special round of applause for Marsha, who really made all of this happen. So yes. It's a pleasure serving on the board with you, Marsha, and thank you for expanding my horizons tonight, among other people's. As Kent mentioned, I won the contest of the Joe Mancinelli lookalike that we had earlier. Thank you for that applause. So I'm just here to deliver some remarks on behalf of Joseph Mancinelli. He is the LEUNA International Vice President and Regional Manager for Central and Eastern Canada, and he actually sends his greetings from Montreal. He asked us to communicate the following. He says, apologies that we can't be with you this evening. We are concluding our LEUNA Canadian Conference here in Montreal. But LEUNA is proud to sponsor such a dynamic and empowering event with exceptional female leaders who are paving the way to embrace and promote women in leadership roles and changing the perspective of women in the trades. LEUNA continues to work with signatory contractors like Julie to showcase the female talent that we have throughout Canada. We still have work to do, but it is because of the leadership of the women you have heard from this evening that we are changing ways for a better and more inclusive tomorrow. So that's from Joe. Thank you very much. And as Ken mentioned before, we really can't do this without our sponsors, so thank you to LEUNA and to OMERS as well. And I'll turn it back over to you, Ken.
Great. Couple more things. We've had a great season at the Empire Club. This is our last evening event. We do have 2 more events. Next week, we have the chief economist of the Conference Board of Canada doing an event with OSSTF on education, talking about the need to invest in education and what it does for the economy. And I think that's going to be a very important event. And the federal health minister, Mary Ng's colleague, will be here on June 24th for a lunch. For both our lunches, it's going to be fantastic. So I want to thank all of you for coming. And what I'm going to ask to happen here is for the sound team at VBC to strike the chairs in the podium after we're done. And all of you can get your pictures with the minister on stage if you want. The panel's got these Raptors t-shirts, and we can get pictures with them on, and we can have lots of fun. But I just want to thank Julie for providing all of you a Raptors. I think she deserves a special round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, meeting adjourned. Thank you.